Cal here. It's been a while. So, for those of you who don't know, I live in Israel, and you've probably all heard about what's going on here, what started here on Saturday. It's been an incredibly intense week. There's been evil unleashed in the world. That's how I feel about it. And I think these atrocities that we witnessed, I think a lot of people are feeling right now that they are painful to the heart of every human being. So I wanted to come on here and just talk about my perspective of these things as someone who has been learning and teaching the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah for many years, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn for all of us about negative things that happen in our reality. What do we need to do to cope with them and to transmute them? And how do we, in general, how do we deal with the evil in our world? How do we create a world that is safe for all human beings, that is peaceful for all human beings? Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs, Jews, everyone. I think every person on this earth deserves and will eventually have a life that is good, because that is the purpose of our creation. We were created to experience goodness, abundance that we can't even imagine right now, to a much greater extent than we've ever experienced. That is where we're going. And yet we see that throughout history, human beings suffer so much. There's so much negativity. So how do we wrap our head around that? How do we understand why these things happen? And if there is this higher guidance that is good, that is loving, why do these things happen in our world? So what is important for me to say, and this is a very deep matter, probably will take a long time to explain, but I'll just shortly kind of give you some points that I think are interesting and important. So what we need to know is that it's a process that we're in that is always guiding us towards our higher levels of development. And the more conscious we are, the more this process goes by smoothly and pleasantly, and it's called the path of light. But when we're not advancing consciously enough, when we don't really know what we need to do, pressures will come from the spiritual system, from nature, to pressure us to move forward. We saw this with COVID. We see it with climate change. All these things that are happening in order to pressure human beings. And what exactly is this pressure? Like, what exactly is expected of us? This is so important for us to realize, because when we don't know, we just feel pressure, we just feel pain, we just feel blows that come into our lives, and we don't know why. And so it's so important to understand the evolutionary process and where our conscious development is taking us. So the system, the process of creation, is always evolving us towards becoming more and more unified. We start out as individuals, right? And right now, I think in our human development, we're the most individual we've ever been. We're like narcissistic societies, and everybody's got their opinion, and we're like ultra divided everywhere. And this has also been true in Israel. We actually had a very divisive year. We were like on the brink of civil war here, with all of the differences of opinion, and people were really fighting each other without any consideration of the sensitive situation we're in security-wise. I think this is just the ego, the human ego at its worst, completely blindfolded by its own negativity. And then what happens when we become so negative? Because, in nature, everything is plus and minus, right? Always trying to balance, right? Nature is always a balance of these opposites. And when there's so much negativity through the divisiveness of our societies, pressures will come in order to unite us, because that minus needs to be balanced. And so when there's a very big pressure, that forces people to come together. It forces people to go above their ego, go above their opinions, and be as one. And Israel is actually a unique country in that sense, that we as a people, historically, like the way this people even started out, is that we started out as a group of spiritual seekers. We gathered around Abraham, the patriarch, and this is what he taught. He taught the law of oneness with all of nature. And the law, the greatest law of our religion is love thy neighbor as thyself. But of course, this has been forgotten, and religion doesn't look anything like that anymore. And most people who are secular don't want anything to do with it. So we're living in this kind of egoistic, individualistic society where everybody's opinionated and we're so divisive. And so nature comes along with these huge blows to push us to unite, to remind us that there is there's more to life than the corporeality that we live in. We have to open our minds. We have to open our hearts to something bigger than that. And we have to stick together. So this is a huge lesson to what life demands of us in any negative situation, really. Anything negative that enters our life happens so that we would move a little bit closer to love, a little bit closer to being together, to supporting each other, to moving away from our egoistic state. Nature is a system of interconnectedness. We have to come into alignment with this system. That is our higher purpose, to become connected and giving and to experience that wholeness. And then when we don't know how to do that consciously, we experience those difficult experiences that unfortunately are the only way to get us to move. Otherwise, we're quite stuck in our ways and happy to just be at rest. And even if the situations are really hard, right? Our world is quite broken. It's very hard for us to change otherwise. However, the more we're aware of what's happening, the more knowledge, the more awareness we have, the more chances are that we can move forward well. So what I want to say is right now Israel is facing a lot of evil, right? Hamas is ISIS, it's Iran. These are enemies of all people. They're enemies of the Palestinians. They're enemies of the free world. And Israel is fighting this evil. It's on the front lines. And so I think what we all need to be doing right now, anybody who wants to live in a safe world, we need to be strengthening the positive forces in our world. And that means increasing the love, increasing the compassion, increasing the solidarity with all people who are suffering, increasing our friendship with each other, and sending a lot of love to the situation so that the forces of goodness prevail and as few people as possible are hurt, so that we can get rid of the terrorism, get rid of the evil, and take this lesson into our hearts. Because I think the solution is never a military solution, like the long-term solution. And I can tell you that for many years I was actually seeking the solutions to peace in the Middle East. As when I was in my 20s, I was active in advocacy and politics, and I was really curious about how are we going to do this? How are we going to make peace possible in this region? I was so curious because it just seemed like there has to be a solution. We can't keep living like this. And I really searched far and wide, and I was really disillusioned because I realized there really were no solutions on the plane, on the level at which we are right now. I realized that the solution would have to come from a higher level of consciousness. It would have to come from some sort of shift in our awareness. And so, like I said before, I think the military solution is only temporary. It has to be there. We have to take care of it. You know, when there's somebody trying to kill you, you have to fight back. But then we have to take this lesson to heart, the lesson of unity above differences, to never allow ourselves to forget how important that is, to never allow ourselves to be at war with each other. Because when you have war internally, you have war externally. So the solution is internal peace within our hearts, each and every one of us, not to hate other people for having different opinions than us, not to fight other people over our opinions, but rather to be able to come closer above them, to be able to accept other people who think differently and to be in a conversation where we can find higher solutions, right? Middle way solutions. This is where we all need to be headed, because all over the world we are divided. And all over the world we're facing a lot of conflict and a lot of challenges, right? Not only in the Middle East. There is a lot of violence everywhere. So if we want to live in a better world that is peaceful and safe, we have to increase those positive forces. Our reality behind the scenes, it's all about forces. The forces are what determine the physical reality. And when we're divided and there's hatred in our own hearts, we will see that in our physical reality as, these very violent deeds, actions, and situations. So we each have a responsibility over this reality, and we can each influence our reality by shifting our own consciousness, our own thoughts and feelings towards greater love and greater connection and greater unity. And this is especially true with people who are different from us, who have different opinions, who think differently. We have to learn how to connect the opposites in our world and balance them, bring them into balance. In Judaism, it's called to cover the hate with love. We have to cover it with love. Above the ego, we unite with love. And that's how we create that balance that emulates nature, which is a system where different opposites come together to form a whole that is greater than the sum of its part. So really, humanity, when we are able to do that, what's going to happen is that we are going to form this, what's it called? Like a superorganism, right? That's where we're headed, into this superorganism state where we're all sharing a higher consciousness of love, of connection, of unity. That's where we're all headed. That's where this evolutionary process is leading us, into these higher levels of consciousness that are all about love. But we have to learn how to do it. It's not something that happens up here. It's something that happens in the heart. And Kabbalah, this ancient wisdom, is a method of how to achieve that. I personally study Kabbalah with people from all over the world, Muslims, Jews, Christians, people from all countries. And it's beautiful to see how that really works, that we have a shared language, the language of the heart, and we practice. We practice connection daily. And I really believe that is imperative for our world. It's not about religion. It's not about faith. It's not about, any of that. It's just about learning how to connect these universal laws of our world, of our reality. So, so coming to you from Israel, from this very difficult situation right now, with a message of hope, of unity, and a belief that peace is possible if we only remember that it depends on each one of us, and it depends on our connection to each other. So that's it. And let's pray together for positive change, and for us to shift the consciousness of the planet together, so we never have to see any of these things happen again, and for nobody to have to suffer again. Sending everybody a lot of love, and send me questions if you have them. I'll be happy to answer. And let's stay together. Bye for now.